Hello everybody, welcome to my next Hearthstone video. Still going to focus on the Temple Rogue I've been playing and the subject of conversation, Corridor Creeper. I have some more commentary to add as I've been playing around with this a bit more. I hope you will enjoy it. Alright, so we're starting out here with a game against Aggro Paladin, and the reason for this is because the next edition of the Vicious Syndicate's meta report just came out, and it ranked Aggro Paladin and Murloc Paladin as two of the most powerful decks available in the early days of Kobolds and Catacombs. They're not that popular of a deck, but they are very powerful. And with this report going live, people are going to be playing that a bit more, I think. Now, it's been my experience thus far that this Temple Rogue list is a natural counter to it. There's just so much, like Backstab, the Chargers, SI7 Agent. This deck has a very easy time controlling the board most of the time against Aggro Paladin. So this is a good time for that. In fact, other very popular, powerful decks that they listed were Big Priest, which can be a problem sometimes. I've taken Big Priest a few times. Sometimes they get the, it's a toss-up. It's not going to be a clear victor there. Against Razakus Priest, though, I usually win. So anyways, also one thing I noticed about the report is that the Temple Rogue list that they recommended takes out Sonya and Cairne from this list to add in Serenite Chain Gang. I do think I'm going to do that moving forward for a variety of reasons. Somebody did play that against me after having already Keleseth, and getting a pair of 3/4 taunts for 4 mana is quite good. This deck does tend to have a little problem on turn 4 doing enough stuff, and Serenite Chain Gang would help that. It puts 2 bodies on the board with 1 card on a turn just before you might want to play Cobalt Scalebane, and that can be good also. If you're in matchups where you're both aggro-y or tempo-y or something like that, and your opponent's not too keen on board controlling, then the Serenite Chain Gang can kind of force the issue. And this is we used to see this in the past, right? When people would add Defender of Argus, it was a way of forcing more face-type decks to deal with your board. So anyways, let's move on to talking about Corridor Creeper. Now, I'm going to share with you guys one of my first thoughts when I saw the card, and as I've been playing more and more, I think I had a pretty good point here, and I'd like to take a step back and talk about Hearthstone in general, or rather even games like this in general. In a recent video, I touched on how there's 3 major playstyles: aggro, mid-range, and control, and by having this sort of rock, paper, scissors thing, it keeps the game fresh and interesting, and everybody's challenging each other to do better, and pretty much everybody wins. Now, starting with the Ungoro expansion, we had Spike Ridged Steed. Now, one of the things that this did to change the game that I really liked is that it started getting people to focus more on board control. I don't know about you, but I absolutely abhor pure face decks. Like, I used to hate it in the early days of Hearthstone, where if you played Hunter, it was basically throw your deck at the opponent, and, usually you'd walk away with the win, and even if you didn't, it was so quick. I mean, it's not fun, it's not interesting, it's not engaging, it's not interactive, etc., etc. Come Knights of the Frozen Throne, we see more of that with the Bone Mare, and now we have Corridor Creeper. And as you can see here, basically, my Corridor Creeper is able to deprive my opponent of his Flame Wreath Faceless. And this is important because now his Flame Wreath Faceless isn't going to be around to board control. Not that he necessarily would have, however, if I'm producing a big enough threat, he might have to, which means now he's going to have to use his spells for board control a bit more. We saw Jade Lightning not go to my face just now. Here we see a Lava Burst not going to my face, Lightning Bolt not going to my face, and this kind of takes the teeth out of aggro decks. Not really, not explicitly, but in a way it kind of does, and I think that's very interesting. It causes people to focus more on board control, and now that Corridor Creepers that's just going to be more of the same, because if people are playing it, they're going to be more willing to kill off their minions, their opponent minions, so they can play this Corridor Creeper and kind of snowball, or try to. So I think that's a very important point to keep in mind, is that now if you're playing against a face an aggro deck and they're not board controlling, you're going to have ways of punishing them. You're going to be able to spike or steed your minion. You're going to be able to Cobalt Scalebane, which, as you can see, turns even things like little flame imps into like real threats. Bone Mare, and now of course with Corridor Creeper, yeah, you're not going to want to board control your opponent's minion if you're not playing Corridor Creeper, but if you are, then you're going to be focused that much more on board control. The opponent here has me down to 6 health. He could have closed out the game if he was going pure face, but I was kind of making it to where he couldn't. And it's kind of a new dynamic where I think tempo decks are more rewarded, or mid-range decks are more rewarded for that, and face decks are going to have an even increasing challenge. And I don't think that's a bad thing. So I just wanted to comment on that idea, and I'm looking forward to see what you guys think about that. Okay, and the last aspect I wanted to talk about is regarding control decks. Going up against a control deck here. I've been receiving some comments on my videos asking things like, they think I've said that because Corridor Creeper's in the game, it's okay just because there's things like Spiteful Summoner, which isn't exactly what I said. I said that other playstyles are getting similar ways to cheat out big minions early, and therefore it's not all just about Corridor Creeper. There's not an uproar about Spiteful Summoner as an example. The thing I want to point out about, and I also got a comment asking like, well, why would you play Control? And of course anybody who's enjoyed the Control playstyle understands that the joy is in overcoming the challenge of being able to shut down your opponent's onslaught and basically achieve a victory despite their best efforts. So Corridor Creeper might present an increase in the challenge for those types of decks, but it doesn't mean that it's omnipotent. Here we see I had the ability to play 2 Corridor Creepers, but I simply can't. I'm going up against a control deck. If he managed to find his Dragonfire Potion, for example, or a turn after that Psychic Scream, I would be completely shut down. So just because Corridor Creeper is available at such a discount doesn't mean that I get to play it for free or for 2 mana, as the case was a turn ago. Alternatively, a control deck, after playing Dragonfire Potion, can then play their own Corridor Creeper. And I'm not saying, I realize that doesn't exactly support my case, because that's like saying that everybody should be playing this card, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that is an option if control really feels that taxed by a card. This is a particular card that they could actually use to their advantage by taking advantage of the way their opponents are. So I just wanted to put out some interesting games for you guys and talk about the topic of Corridor Creeper that much more. Obviously, Blizzard, in the end, is going to be the holder of all the telemetry. They're going to be able to tell like how often it's being used, how often it's being mulliganed, what the win rates are, etc., etc. Ultimately, they're going to be able to tell us if, in fact, the card is overpowered, if the card needs to be addressed. So all I can do is speculate. In my limited experience and understanding, it doesn't seem that Corridor Creeper's that big of a menace. And I'll be forthcoming here. Obviously, I'm playing them in the deck that I'm playing the most right now. So, it's going to be very easy for somebody to say, oh, well, he's biased. He's using that card. Of course he's going to think it's okay. And I acknowledge that. We all have our biases and things like that. I've tried my best to approach this topic as objectively as possible. And I'm only human, so I'm not saying that I've achieved this, but I have had Corridor Creeper played against me as well. And maybe it doesn't seem like that big of a deal because I play with Vilespine Slayers as a rogue, but every class is going to have some form of spot removal. If that means they've got to use it on Corridor Creeper instead of Edwin, well, that's always been the case. You have to be selective with if and when you use your big spot removal, for example. As a rogue, one of the problems I face is that Vilespine is my only spot removal. If I want to remove anything else, I literally have to combine like Backstabs and SI7 agents and smaller minions together, along with my face even, to try and take them down. So there's balance, there's ins and outs. And maybe that's why balance isn't exactly the word to use. And that's why I've always liked the way Trump describes it as unfair cards. You need to be playing cards that are unfair, because as classes in Hearthstone, we have access to cards that our opponent's not going to. And how we use that and combine them together is going to help to dictate how well we can, face off against our opponent, and of course in any particular meta. So that's going to wrap it up for my thoughts. Hope you guys are enjoying the footage in the background. Let me know what you think. I'm really liking all the interest and conversation that people are stemming over this subject, so I hope we can keep that going. Hope this has been worth your time. If so, hit that like and subscribe button. In the meantime, I will see you in the next video. You guys take care.